Welcome, I'm Bev Adams. I'm an independent demonstrator, and this is the card I'd like to show you today. It uses icing on the cake, and I am going to be using some of the embossing paste, and I'm also using the decorative ribbon border punch. And I actually made this particular card on my camping trip I went on a few weeks back. So you know that if I can do it camping, you can do it. My card base is So Saffron, and it's a basic card that's 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. I have another layer of So Saffron that's 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. And then I have just a scrap. In my directions I said 1 1/4 by 5.5, but really we just need scraps that are large enough for these 4 flowers. I also used a piece of Whisper White cardstock that is 5 1/4 by 4 for the inside of my card. A piece of Whisper White that's 1 by 5.5, and again this is just really for these leaves. And we need 2 pieces of glossy white paper, 5 1/4 by a little bit more than 1 inch. I'm using our Flirty Flamingo, which turns out looking more orange on the So Saffron, and Wild Wasabi. This is a photopolymer stamp, so I'm bringing in my Stampin' Pierce mat. And I'm just going to start off by stamping Happy Birthday right in the middle of this piece. This stamp set has several frosting borders, but I'm going to use this shell border. There are 2 pieces with this shell border, and for this front I'm just going to use the smaller one. And I want this to go around. I'll be going off the edge, so I don't want to do that. So I am going to kind of cover up. I'll be covering up those corners with the roses, so it doesn't really have to be perfect. And while I'm at it, I will go ahead and stamp the inside, and for the inside I am going to use the larger piece. And this is really sized to be perfect for your basic card base. And I can put this layer on the inside of my card. This is adhesive of your choice, but I like to use the liquid glue so I can wiggle it around to be just exactly where I want it to be. Next I'm pulling in a piece of freezer paper, which is butcher paper with a little plastic coating on it. You could use wax paper or whatever. And I'm using just a little bit, probably a scant teaspoon. And this is that embossing paste. And I'm going to add just a drop of Flirty Flamingo ink to this. And I want to mix it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be totally smooth. And I'm going to just use the tip to put a little bit of frosting on here. Just to add a little bit of texture to this piping that's already here. It does not need to look like piping. Just a little bit of texture. My camera got a little overheated. It's been hot where I live, and so I had to take a little break while it cooled down, but I right after I put the embossing paste on here, I sprinkled it with the Dazzling Diamonds. The Dazzling Diamond sticks to that embossing paste perfectly. The other thing that I did that I wanted to be sure and tell you is that I immediately after I spread the embossing paste on here, I dropped my palette knife into a tub of water so that it didn't dry on there. It's much easier to get off if you keep it wet. Next, I want to stamp the roses. I'm stamping these roses on just a scrap of paper. I could use the embossing paste on this. I could also use glue and the glitter, but I just thought it would be easier to use Wink of Stella on this. It doesn't have quite the level of glitter that the Dazzling Diamonds has, but I just needed a little bit of shine here. And then I'm going to fussy cut them. I don't really especially like fussy cutting, but this is a real easy shape to cut out. Just, you know, if you don't get the swirls exactly right, that's just fine. And I wanted to do kind of a close-up. There's not really a solid line to cut on with these. This lobe has a solid line, but this one doesn't. So you're just going to kind of follow the curve around, leaving some white spaces. Here's another petal that doesn't really have an outline, so just kind of follow the curve. So I have my 4 roses. Then I want 8 of the leaves, and I'm stamping this on the Whisper White. And again, fussy cutting. Don't worry about getting every little nook and cranny here. So I have my 4 roses and 8 leaves, so I'm going to swap out my Stampin' Pierce mat for my silicone craft mat. And this is the one you want to use for adhesives. So I'm just going to put a couple of dots of adhesive on the base of each of these leaves. Oh, that's a lot of adhesive. With the liquid multi-purpose glue, a little goes a long way, and if you do get a lot on, just set it aside for it to dry. When it starts to turn clear, it will still be very sticky, but it won't be as likely to ooze out from under your project. So while that's drying a bit, I'm going to open up my punch, my decorative ribbon punch, and I'm going to punch my borders. So there are some lines that came on the punch, and I want to put the edge of my paper there, about there. With these thin strips, you can't exactly see where your edge is, but if you aim for that, your edge will be just right. I've got 2 like loopy sections here, and I'm going to pull it out 2 of those and then match up with the pattern on the punch. Make sure that this side is up against the edge. Slide it over 2 patterns. Make sure it's up against the edge. And repeat. And that gives me a perfect border. And a whole pile of trash. This one was a scrap, and so I wasn't able to go back both ways, but I should be able to get 2 when my cardstock is at least 1 1/16. So I'll see if I can go through twice on this one. Do turn it around, because this is pretty straight, but there's a little notch there. If you weren't exactly straight, your punches won't be exactly straight either. So I have 4 glossy strips. This is dry, so I'm going to put just a little bit of adhesive right on the edge, all the way around. And then I just want to snip into the diagonal here. Remember, you can have roses on the corners, so don't worry about this too much. Really, this is silly to even miter the corners. So just trim your corners. Put 2 leaves on each rose. Then put a Stampin' Dimensional in the back of each one. And place a rose in each corner. And these hide a multitude of sins. It hides where our corners aren't perfect. And then we just need to put this on our card front. More dimensionals. Now, if you're mailing this and you want to save postage, anytime you've got double dimensionals on here, it starts getting iffy getting it through the mail without extra postage. So you might want to put one of these 2 layers on flat. Make sure everything's right side up. It's always nice to decorate your envelope, so you might want to stamp this border either on the side or maybe on the back of the flap. Up to you. And my project is complete. If you would like the free detailed directions to this project, come on over to bevadams.com and I'll have a link for the directions and all the products that I used in this project today. Talk to you soon. Bye.